What color are you again, Kote? You're copper, right?
Yeah. So the way I'm running this world, Kote, is for the Dragonsborn specifically. They are an actual society in this. So I feel like over the course of many millennia, over the course of this world story, that all the different races sort of mix together a little bit. So you're predominantly copper, but you could have like a genetic marker for one of the other colors. It's just kind of like in your DNA. So
Totally
you
makes
wouldn't
sense.
necessarily be like perfect copper the whole way through. You'd have little scales that would be off color kind of thing. Kind of like birthmarks on a human. So I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about that last night.
Okay.
No, it's cool. That's a neat little touch.
Right, yeah. Like
You could even do it in kind of a thing where you're more of a pure blood, right? The less you have, and some people are snooty about that. Could be a whole thing.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to give too much away, but let's. You don't need to. You don't need to be too concerned about the intricacies of the Dragonborn.
Oh, you're gonna
side.
go right into it? I fucking hope so. Ooh,
No,
hard
a
as a
lot
rock.
of them are. I don't want to give it away, but there's not going to be a lot of.
You're fired.
Mhm.
You're not allowed to DM.
Yeah. All right. So as you look around the back end of the room, you can kind of see that the glass panes on the windows are actually starting to shine in. It's early in the day, probably around 9 a.m. when you walk into the clergy, and this is what you see. You can see Finnik is performing some kind of a ceremony at the front end of the room. And he seems to be kneeled down in front of the large pedestal of Moradin, singing a dwarven religious song. And I have it written. I ain't fucking singing it, but I have it written.
Oh no, you make fucking.
All right, fine.
Sing it, you have to sing.
Here we go. All right, it goes. Hold on. Hold on. Let me move the mic.
I'm returning my recorder.
Oh, trust me, I'm recording this already. All right, so it goes. Amun suri yamiren sur yotos mas kaperenor yomoren sur alaften mas. And that is the whole thing, so go fuck yourself. I nailed it.
That was actually
this
pretty
is
good,
better.
Sean. Like I'm not even
off.
gonna try a lot. Like yeah, like
Do more of
hands
that.
down, that was good.
And literally, I'm showing the chat right now that the lyrics are actually there. Where's the camera? There it is. It's right there. Fuck all you guys. I did write it. Anyways, so as he stands up, he puts his hand across, kind of like rubs two fingers across from one end of the platform to the other, and you can see him touch his forehead, and he stands up. As he turns around, you can see that this fucking awesome-looking dwarf is that much sexier in full plate armor, and has replaced his fucking mace with a goddamn warhammer. so from now on, you could also call him Big Pimpin'. It's up to you. I'll leave it at that. And he kind of steps down the hallway, and then all of the dwarfs next to all the other pillars kind of bow, and then lay a candle on the pedestals on the left and right hand side of the room. And he basically takes a step back, and he kind of ushers you to come forward, and he walks up onto the platform where the pedestal of Moradin is. And he brings you around the side, and he says, but for the matter at hand, he looks over, and you can see the woman, or the Dragonborn, praying to the statue, and says, she has been cured. With your good graces and our expedition, we were able to get exactly what we need, and now we have a cure for this foul disease that's plagued my kind for several generations. But one other thing scares the absolute shit out of me. He puts his other arm around your hands and walks you over to where the hole is on the back end of the clergy. And you look down, and you can actually see the monster that had the hole punched in its face is attached to the wall, screaming and riling and rolling, trying to get itself away from bondage. He says, but there's only specific ways we can kill this thing. And he goes, and he reaches down on the opposite side of the platform, wherever the grate is, and off to a side that you can't really see too well. He pulls out a crossbow. He aims it down, and he shoots it with the crossbow, and all you see is it just connect directly to its chest. And it kind of forces its way in, almost if the bolt itself was actually mechanical in nature. And it just kind of drills itself into this thing's chest, and you just see go, oh, and just fucking dies immediately. He looks to you and says, he hands you one of the bolts, and you look at the edge of it, and all you can see is where the metal tip arrow usually is wood infused with silver.
God. A horrific experience, isn't it?
So he basically regales you with the tale of what he was actually able to learn from the tablet and the fever dream. So Kote, you weren't around for the fever dream, but Finnik was able to find one of the things he was looking for his story quest, and he was studying it in the fever dream. But we've made it apparent that earlier on that if there's a fever dream, it still happens, but it happens as a side quest in between sessions, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So it's actually happened, but it gets pushed forward later. So this is kind of a fever dream because Ben's not here, really, in my opinion. But, so he hands that to you, and he basically says that the myriad writings are actually from another land, and that he was able to figure out exactly what to do with the information passed down from his predecessors. He explains to you that his father was actually killed by one of these creatures, and he's been devoting him and his sex entire life at ridding the world of these creatures. And now we have the tools to defeat them.
Interesting. I'll put the bolt in my quiver.
Yep. He says, "Fear here," and he kind of hands you like a handful. We'll say he gives you 5.
And call it Finnick's bolt. Fucking.
So he basically walks to the edge. He walks to the edge of the altar, and he ushers the rest of you forward. He says, "I have something for each of you." All right, so everybody's coming up. So Finnick kind of takes a step to the left, and Kote, you come up and have a look down the grate, and you can kind of see this dead hulking corpse thingy. So basically, imagine like if it was a vampire with a hole punched in its face, but it like looked to be alive, and you can see like the entrails of it kind of coming out of the hole, and also like where the actual thing struck. You can almost see like this where the bolt hit. You can kind of see black veins coming out of it and protruding through the whole front of this creature. Finnick walks up to the sides of it, kicks the door open, and says, "Come with me for a moment."
Okay.
So he climbs down the ladder. He climbs down the ladder into this bottom section. And it's basically like what you would see kind of like in, like, imagine like a religious prison. It's basically like very large marks on the doors. There are 2 separate rooms, the one you're standing in and the one at the very back. And he goes over towards the door. You guys are now facing away from the monster, and he unlocks this door and opens it into a following room. And he steps in.
I guess I'll follow last and kind of give the corpse a wide berth.
Yeah, that thing's
Try
terrible.
not to get any
Even without
goo
it,
on my shoes.
yeah, even with its face like that, it just kind of
Remember, I have this thing's heart in my bag.
yeah,
It's
but it's
RP.
probably rotting by now, I would imagine.
Well, if it's vampiric, does it rot?
It's meat that's outside of a body.
Touche.
It's like it's
Davy Jones' heart.
this
didn't
thing's
rot.
probably got a worse stench on it than most men after a long workout. Like it's bad.
My stomach growls because I eat foul, putrid things.
So basically, he walks into the room, and as you enter in, you can see that it's like this is where it looks like there's like a little mini forge. Like it's a very small room, like probably enough for maybe 6 or 7 people to fit shoulder to shoulder. And he walks in, and you see on the left-hand side there's a couple of tables, and on the right-hand side there's a couple of tables, and on it you can see what your silver was fashioned for. And you see on the table 5 steaks of like 5 steaks and 5 silver steaks as well. And he says, "I have these for you." Since now we know how to kill these creatures, I feel that if we ever run into them in the future, you should have these. And it's only going to be, it's basically, I got to find the stats for it, but think of it kind of like as just like a dagger for right now.
1d4.
1d4 pierce.
Yeah.
And he says, so, Calum, I need you to, Calum and actually everybody can roll a perception check.
Perceiving.
Do I sense any certain danger?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. I didn't see Bucko.
Perfect. All right, so Edmund, you're able to see on the left-hand side of the room, past where all the stakes were, there's actually a tome on the wall that's right above a podium, and you can kind of see two candles that are on either side of the tome, as if it was a reading station.
Like a lectern kind of thing?
Well, it's kind of like, imagine there's a book on the wall with candles on either sides and a podium underneath it that the thing isn't touching.
Okay. Well, can I wander up to it?
Sure. So as you look at it, it seems to be a very, like, it's in the or in the dwarven style. You kind of see a lot of, like, it's a very square looking tome, lots of intricacies on it. You can see, like, kind of like the symbols of Moradin and also of, like, this creature with long fangs. And
Okay.
Finnik walks up behind you and says, if you want to know my story, feel free on reading that tome. And he just goes from one person to one person, giving you each a wooden stake and a silver stake. He comes over to Scrog, and he looks Scrog in the eye, and he says, but, since you were nice enough to give me the supplies for these, I feel I should spread the wealth, and I want to show you what I'm working on next, Scrog, since you might be interested. And he takes you off to the side, and he shows you that he's making a mechanism that fits in with armor, so that if he flicks his wrist a certain way, it protrudes from the wrist. And you can kind of see he's trying to meld the technologies together, so that if he just kind of flicks his wrist, the stake comes out of the top part where your knuckles are, kind of like almost like Wolverine.
Type thing.
Yeah, and he's trying to get that to work, and he thinks it can be applied to some of the items that you're crafting over at your forge as well. But we need a specific kind of forger to be able to do it. He's basically saying he needs one of his kind to run that smithy in order to do it.
Alright, I'll put an order, one of my last orders in with Cricks today.
Very good. All right,
Finnick, you don't care for this Cricks man, right?
he looks over, he says, I have not discerned any evilness from this person, but he just, like, you can taste the slime of this person. Like, he's a very slimy individual. I've seen kind of people like him before, give and take, over the course of my travels, but this one, I don't know, something strikes me as odd.
Well, we are going to dispatch him from his position if you don't have any quarrels amongst this.
Very good. He kind of looks down, he's like, although I never kill the innocent, in order for me to assist, evidence must be presented. So he's
God, I don't think we should kill him.
Let's dispatch him from his position. I didn't say he was going to kill him. He said he was he said he's seen people of his kind be sex workers before. We could just, like, demote
I don't
him.
know if he'll make that much money.
It's not so much the money I'm after. It's more of his will.
Quite. Yeah.
Indubitably.
So I'm pretty much making it so that, like, on his off time, the only thing Finnick's been doing is crafting this shit. That's pretty much it. So he's got really nothing else. But you got your story tome on the left-hand side if you guys want to read it.
Yeah, I'm digging in there.
All right, so
Sean, I feel like I feel like this is a long con because I didn't get a dwarven fucking prostitute. I was going to totally bring her down here and make her fucking forge things, but I got a gnome instead.
all right, so you can kind of see it is written in Dwarvish, but Finnick walks up and rubs the bottom of the page, and you can kind of see white light follow his fingertips as he does a small circle with a cross through it, and it kind of unlocks the page into your language. And it's just so it starts as it's in retrospect to what Finnick has seen, so he's telling it in first person. So he basically says it's a dwarven ballad devoted to my mother. My father was a proud dwarf and an honor to his kind. On the left-hand side of the page, you can actually see word for word the song he was singing.
Nice.
Yeah. So
So watching him do that, I want to ask Finnick, can you only do this with Dwarven language, or can you do this with all language? Like, can you translate all language in the world to common language for all of us to
he
understand?
says no. The only thing that I can do is on a certain time of year, if the dwarves scry onto a specific piece of paper at on a full moon, there is certain magics they can do to conceal what the letter says. And as time progresses, the magic gets stronger and stronger. It can only be unlocked by the dwarf who wrote it, which was Finnick.
Got it.
So it's kind of like its own little like safe cracker thingy. So it's like
Got it. Yeah, only useful for things that he has written.
yeah. So
Codex kind of thing.
in the actual ballad, it was devoted to his mother. His father was a proud dwarf and honor to his kind. On the day my father left in search of
Otter.
my father left in search
I'm
of
better than my father.
oh fuck. My father left in search of Petronesia, which is a large plateau to the north said to be made of pure mithril. He found it after a year of searching. He and our kin began to harvest the mithril, but at the end of the first night, the workers were approached by a creature dressed in black. He warned the workers to halt and vacate the land due to its belonging to him. My father and the dwarf scoffed at his claims, saying they don't believe this old brute's power was more than an empty attempt to jest. The old man disappeared into the night in mistral form with one final remark: temporary is wealth, forever is blood. The dwarfs at the end of the seventh day rejoiced as pure wealth they had amassed, joking and daydreaming of joys that could be purchased. The sun set. He had returned. My father exited his tent, one I have slept in for years with my mother as we studied the ancient text of the clergy. Seeing all of his kin lying dead, he felt two hands grab him around the shoulders, and then he lost consciousness. My uncle returned him home, and I even remember the color of the leaves in the ground they brought him home on. They laid him in bed, and there he remained until morning. I still remember the smell of incense my mother burned as I fell asleep. The next morning I heard the blood hit the floor. I ran into the room to see my father feasting on my mother's neck. So I ran. My father, yeah, exactly. My father changed. I opened the front door to leave, and as I ran, he remained in the house, unable to enter sunlight. And that's the end of the text.
Oh, Finnick, I didn't realize your father. I am sorry, my friend.
He bows his head. He takes a step back and leans up against the table that he's been working on furiously over the past few weeks and says, "This is why I hunt them. This is why I fight. Although our differences may be major between all of us, my goal is clear. I will stay with you as long as it supports the cause. But that's not to say payment won't be returned." So he's basically telling you he doesn't mind sticking with you, but like if push comes to shove and there's something he's got to deal with, he at any point he could just be like, "Fuck you, I'm out."
Understood.
How many of these creatures have you killed?
Says, so in his journeys, he's never killed any. This is the first one, but he has encountered several.
Hmm. Are
And
they still out there in the world?
he says, yes, that's why I needed to be at the monolith. The monolith is like a depiction of how these beings were created. But the monoliths themselves seem to be evil in Ornit. So basically, like, there's a chance that these could take over my mind. But with the power of the clergy and this amulet, he shows you an amulet that he's had in his person for a while. This amulet allows him to kind of like get mental protection from the monoliths as he studies them. And he's the first dwarf to be able to do that.
Cults on top of cults on top of cults. But at least we're ridding the world of evil, right?
He kind of steps back. He says, yes, but is a wolf evil? A wolf can enter a home and kill a youngling, but it isn't evil, it's just hungry. What I impose is that these creatures are being controlled, somehow, but I have no evidence to support that. Which is why I must study more monoliths.
From my readings of vampires in children's books, once they've been consumed by the virus, or the curse, they cease to be living. They cease to be what we would call people.
He leans over, kind of gives you a glint in his eye. Well, we've never actually successfully killed one before, but I am happy to say that the worker from Horzors and Moors has been healed. I've never heard of a creature coming back from this. That scroll that we received earlier was good intel, but something worries me that we seem to find this very easily. I don't know why.
Agree with that.
I've been searching for years and years for this sort of thing, and then all of a sudden it just comes up out of nowhere? That seems fishy to me, so be on your guard.
Always, my friend, always.
Finnik pops an Oreo cookie into his mouth and has a time.